I am Cindy Griffith. I'm a licensed professional counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, certified sexual addiction therapist, and the owner of Hope and Healing Counseling Center. I do have one of my colleagues with me here tonight. His name is Michael Cooper. He's a resident in counseling. He's back there at the table. So if you decide you would like to purchase a book, he's back there. He's also going to be taking some photos, but I want you all to know that we're going to be in keeping with the confidentiality of CR, so they will only be of me to use on my website, okay? So don't want anybody to be concerned about that. And then also, if you all don't know Dan Curry, you just met him and his family. I got to know Dan about 5 years ago. I was in a situation where I was interpreting for the Washington County Fair Sidewalk Prophets concert. At least that's what I was told. And I showed up, and they said, oh, there's an opening show. And I was like, opening show? And my perfectionist said, so where is his set list? And what is he going to sing? And what's every word to the songs that he's going to sing? No, sorry, he's going on in 5 minutes. So I was freaking out, as I normally do. And he gets on stage, and he sang a song that night. If you get a chance, go to YouTube, Rend the Heavens. I listen to it at least twice a week ever since then. It is one of the most powerful songs I have ever heard in my life. And I've heard a lot of powerful songs. So keep that in mind. Like I said, it's one of the most powerful songs I've ever heard. So at the end of tonight, when I get finished speaking, like I said, there are some books for sale. I just recently published my first book. So those of you who do know me, I have 2 new titles, right? I am an author and officially a speaker, I guess. So if you purchase a book tonight, or if you purchased one before and you'd like for me to sign it, I'm happy to personalize that for you after I finish speaking, and I'll be back there at the table. There's also going to be a time of Q&A at the end of my talk, just in case you guys have any questions. I will do my best to answer those. I'm also open for feedback and comments as I start this journey. So I guess the first slide is up there. I can't see it, so I'm going to assume it's up there. My book, the name of it, You Restored, Turning Trials into Triumphs from the Inside Out. So I want to talk a little bit about why I wrote the book. I do explain it in the book somewhat. But I actually was at Celebrate Recovery back in August at Real Life Church. And as I was preparing for that talk, which I think they gave me 3 weeks to prepare for that, am I right? Yeah, okay. Again, freak out moment, but we got through it. But I was like, how much can I squeeze into 40 minutes? So if you guys were there that night, you probably felt like you had a fire hose on you, because I was throwing it in as much as I could that night. And I realized afterwards, as I was speaking to my life coach, that that was my passion. Like, I wanted to give as many people as many tools as I could possibly give them. And that is where I started to think about writing a book. Because I know over the past 10 years, it has become increasingly difficult for people to find a counselor. And we stay full. There's just not enough hours in the day or enough counselors in the field. But then also there's a lot of people who, for whatever reason, cannot or will not ever show up in a counselor's office. And our world is full of pain. And so I was like, how can we multiply this information? And that's when my life coach and I worked through my greatest fear, which is being noticed. Because the more people who read your book, the more people who hear you speak, are the more people who are noticing you. And in my mind, that was danger. And I'll talk more about that in the book. But what I realized was that my passion, my true passion for helping more people to find freedom, and my fear were in direct conflict with each other. And I had to learn to lean into my fear. I can't say I've overcome it, but I'm leaning into it. And so as I lean into my fear, then who I am at the core, my passion, then comes out. And so it's that feedback that helps me keep going. So obviously I'm still on this journey, and I think I will be as long as we're on this side of life, but I will tell you it does get easier, and the journey is well worth it. So as I was thinking about tonight, I was like, what in the world am I going to talk about? I don't want to fire hose these people again. I've already done it once. And there's so much in the book. There really is. It's a working document. I had someone say they're going to go through it at least once a year just to clear out what shows up. And in fact, not too long ago, I had to pull it out myself and go through it. So it is a working document. But I began to pray about that because I was like, God, what am I going to say? I don't know how to break this down. And as he normally does, he wakes me up at 3 a.m. because that's when I'm paying the most attention. He's talking to me all the time, but I tend to get so distracted during my day doing my to-do list that I don't always hear him until 3 a.m. But when I wake up at 3 a.m., I know that I know that I know that I know. And that's where tonight's talk came from, is I know that I know. And it's not anything I even mentioned in the book, although it is a topic from the book. The next slide. So you restored. I want you to think about that for a minute. The first question I want to ask you is, who are you? And what does it mean to be restored? And I think it's important for us to break that down, because if we don't know what it means, how are we going to know how to get there, or even what it is when we do get there? So I want you to think about what your response would be. If I ask you that question, who are you? You may want to write it down. What's the first thought that comes to your mind when I ask you that question? Who are you? The next slide. So oftentimes we will answer with relationship identities, is what we call them, right? I'm so-and-so's wife or husband or fiance, the son and daughter of so-and-so, friend, a child, a parent, co-worker, whatever that is. And oftentimes it has to do with where we are or what we're doing. So if you're at your son's baseball game, you might say, well, I'm Billy's dad or mom. If you're at a funeral, you might say, well, I'm Mabel's granddaughter. If you're at a graduation for, say, one of your younger siblings, I'm so-and-so's oldest brother or sister. And if you're talking about your family of origin, you might say, well, I'm the baby of the family, or the middle child, or I'm the oldest. If you're 1/5 of 10, I don't even know what you call yourself at that point. But if it has to do with work, you might say, I'm the IT guy. Or perhaps you're the cashier in the McDonald's drive-through line. And if you're that person, you're my granddaughter's favorite person in the whole wide world, because nothing excites her quite like a McDonald's chicken nugget kids meal. The toys, I'm telling you. Next slide. Another way you might answer that question is in identities in relation to your life experiences, perhaps behaviors or other characteristics. You might be the ex-con or the felon. You might be damaged goods. You might be the anxious one, the addict, the angry one, the divorced one. And obviously, we could answer things like I'm the singer, dancer, artist, and so forth. But that's not usually what we come up with first. Number slide. So, again, oftentimes we answer, who are you in relation to others or in relationships to your life experiences? But rarely do we ask ourselves, who am I? Who am I at my core? Who am I really? Really? Does that question ever cause you shame or confusion? Do you ever feel like maybe you got lost somewhere along the way? Do you feel like maybe various life trials have caused you to just lose yourself a little more each day? Oftentimes, we trade in our unapologetically best self for the approval of a counterfeit self. We spend so much time in our lives just trying to gain approval and acceptance that somehow who we are gets lost. And so I want you to think about that question one more time. Who are you? Just you. Nothing more and nothing else. So if you've gotten lost, then how can you live in the freedom to be unapologetically your best self? The journey can be a little bit scary, I will tell you that. And it's exciting. And I want you to think about that. We can't run from fear. And you can't run from hard. It's hard to make change, and it's hard to take the journey to freedom, and it's hard to stay exactly where you are. So you have to choose your hard, knowing that one leads to a life of freedom, and the other one is the continued bondage that you've been in for many, many years. The next slide. So let's think about what it means to be restored. I wrote my entire book, all of its contents, and could not think of a title. Could not think of one. Had all this information and had no idea how to title it. So I reached out to a friend who had a friend who had a friend, and I ended up with someone at Focus on the Family who helps authors title their books. Apparently that's pretty common. And so what he did was he spent about an hour and a half with me, just getting to know me, getting to know my heart, getting to know my passion. And then he said, now I'll be going for my runs this week, and as I'm running, I'll be thinking about what you shared, and I'm going to send you about 25 different things to think about. And you'll know when you have, this is it. And so he sent it to me, and immediately I was like, oh, that's it. That's it. And then I do what I always do. I need to take a vote. I'm going to ask about 10 people if they would read the book if it was titled that. Which ones do they like the best? And secretly, I'm like, but this is it. But I need to ask other people. I got to find out. And so I did. I sent it to several and was like, tell me what you think. And I got all kinds of feedback, and I was getting more and more confused, and I was getting more and more lost. And thankfully, I had a friend who said, Cindy, whose book is this? Whose heart is this? Whose soul is this? Well, I guess it's supposed to be mine. You know, I did put a lot of hours into it. She said, it's your title and no one else's. If no one ever reads it, at least you know it was you. So that's when I decided that the name of the title was You Restored, Turning Trials into Triumphs from the Inside Out, because that's exactly what my heart wants you to do. And so think about what restoration means to you. The pictures on the screen there, they're two vehicles that I clearly remember, even though one of them was taken when I was just a toddler. My daddy loved to restore old cars. He was a mechanic by trade, but he always had at least one or two cars that he was restoring. In fact, all the way up to the day he died, he had two. So my grandpa, my daddy's daddy, he spent his life restoring old furniture. He was a carpenter by trade, but he was always had some pieces of furniture that he was restoring in his wood shop. When the vehicles showed up on the scene of my daddy's garage, they were typically on the back of a flatbed or record truck, never in tip-top shape. There was clear external body damage and sure to be internal mechanical things wrong with them as well. One thing's for sure, they've been beaten up in their lifetime. They've been rejected, abandoned, possibly even forgotten until my daddy's passionate heart showed up. Daddy likely got those cars for nearly nothing. That's usually the way he rolled. But also because whoever owned them at that time no longer thought they were worth much. Daddy would be so excited about the future finished product that he didn't seem bothered by their less than perfect state at that moment. Have you ever felt like one of those old vehicles? I know I have. I remember my daddy spending hours searching for parts to a vehicle that would match the original model, and that was long before the days of Google and Amazon. I'm sure it took him much longer to complete a vehicle because he was looking for the perfect part. He knew that every detail, down to the door locks and the buttons on the seats, made a difference in his uniqueness. I barely recall any finished products because they were typically sold long before he got them finished. Several cars came in and out of our lives during my daddy's time on earth. And I spent many hours underneath the car with him or inside as he was describing that process of restoration. And while I probably didn't even really care about what he was talking about, I think my heart soaked in the restoration mindset. Next slide. So the book breaks down some information about your thoughts, emotions, and the core beliefs in greater detail. But tonight's focus is on those that originate from the trials in life. As we talk about those old cars, many of us see ourselves that way. Life has beaten us up, and we've been in a few fender benders, would you say? Our external bodies might show some of that, and certainly our internal systems have a few things that need restoration. Thousands of thoughts per day go through our mind, some of them automatic, and some of them have more of an effect on who we think we are than others. Some of those might be, I'm not blank enough. That could be good enough, thin enough, rich enough, tall enough, short enough, pretty enough, whatever. We live in a society where it's never enough. Could be I'm unworthy or I'm unlovable. I'm a disappointment. I'm powerless. I'm stupid, or I'm a failure. How have those thoughts about yourself affected who you think that you are? And then talk a little bit about emotions. Emotions, we can learn through life, have power, like a tool or a weapon. We can use them to manipulate situations. Now, obviously, emotions have other things, but we learn that pretty early on. We can shame someone. If you only loved me, you would do so-and-so, right? Or it could be throwing your temper tantrum because, well, that get what you wanted in the store. Maybe you could be daddy's little princess, and if you're sweet enough, he'll buy you that lollipop. You may give the silent treatment to your girlfriend because that makes her jump through hoops and show you that she cares for you more. You could have been a victim so that you could have someone come in and save the day for you. Pouting, we know pouting gets us lots of different things. And I think one of the main things is we all know that being seductive has enormous power. And those are all ways of manipulating someone else's emotions to get what you want, aren't they? So what are some ways that you learn to use those emotions to maneuver through life? Sometimes they kept us safe. Sometimes they kept us feeling important or that we belong. And what are some ways that others have manipulated your emotions to get what they want? It can be quite painful, can't it? The next slide. So the metaphor for behaviors, thoughts, emotions, and core beliefs is something that came to me many years ago. And I've really been operating from that stance ever since. It's just recently that I put it into a book. But behaviors are like fire alarms. They indicate that there's a fire within a person that needs tending to. Oftentimes we focus on the behaviors as though they are the problem, but they're not the problem. They're just an indicator that there's a problem going on. And as long as we just beat up on the fire alarm, the fire continues to burn and it continues to spread. Emotions, they're messengers. They have a purpose. They're there to tell us when things are going well and when they're not. If you experience joy, it likely means that you're doing something that is feeding your soul. If you experience frustration, it likely means there's a boundary that's not at a healthy level for your well-being. And so we need to learn to listen to our emotions. We don't tell them to go away or to stop. We just say, what are you trying to tell me? I'm angry. What is that anger saying? What do I need to do about that? Thoughts are a powerful force, and they direct our emotions and ultimately our behaviors. Those core beliefs, those are the fires that were started some time ago. Could be a recent event. It could be an event since you were 5. I don't know. But they all started a spark. And then various life experiences feed those fires, causing them to spread. So I want you to think about this cycle that the mind travels through in a split moment. A life event occurs. I'm going to give you an example that some of us may have experienced. You're driving down the road and someone cuts out in front of you. So it goes through your core belief, which is that filter. Let's say your core belief is, nobody cares enough to pay attention to me. The thoughts and emotions that follow that, I am sick of nobody paying attention to me. And the emotions would be anger, frustration, maybe sadness. And then let's talk about that behavior that will happen within seconds. It's road rage, maybe laying on the horn, giving a few hand signals, if you know what I mean. So, the cycle, it has various effects on your system. From the moment it starts, for at least 30 minutes later, your whole body is reacting to someone cutting out in front of you, right? And if that's one of your core beliefs, that nobody ever pays attention to you, that you're not important enough for people to pay attention to you, probably happens in various situations throughout your day. But the good news is, if you change one part of that cycle, that core belief, that filter through which all life experiences come, then it can have a very different outcome. Someone pulls out in front of you. You have a neutral filter that has really little to no power over your system. The thoughts and emotions may be something like, I wonder what they have going on today that's got them in such a hurry. The emotions are more inquisitive, right? Certainly less triggering to the system. And the behavior would be a simple response of moving over, backing up, slowing down, whatever that might be, just to let them go. And the effect that that has on your system is peace. So take a look at that cycle and input most any life event in that and see how it affects you. The journey to hope and healing, to turning life's trials into triumphs, is by understanding your core beliefs, those filters through which things travel, and then follow that process. So I'm going to tell you just a little story, and Dan doesn't know I'm going to tell this, but I'm going to. So we got the call that we were going to be speaking tonight, and Dan was going to be singing, and he's saying things like, I'm pumped, I'm excited, I can't wait. And I'm like, I'm doing my meditation and my journaling and all of this deep breathing stuff. Like, what? Where's my filter? My filter showed up, didn't it? And so excitement and fear have very similar chemicals in the body, right? He's all pumped, and I'm a mess. But the difference was our core belief, the thought, the filter through which we are coming to celebrate recovery went through a very different filter between Dan and myself. So, it's interesting because we had a radio interview over the weekend on Saturday. Same thing. I'm like, Dan, do you want to do this radio interview? He's, that's great. Like, I'm thinking of every excuse possible to get out of that radio interview, right? And I'm like, I need to do it. I don't want to do it. I should do it. Should I not do it? I got family coming in at 3 o'clock that afternoon. I can't do it at 9 o'clock that morning. I just came up with all kinds of things in my head. And he's like, great, this is awesome. Okay. Filter, Cindy, filter. Change your filter. And I began to realize, okay, we have something to say. We have songs to sing. We have hearts to touch. We have lives to change. And that's when I said, okay, Christy, I'm leaning into my fear. I'll be there. So, when you think about changing a behavior and, what behavior would you like to change? What is a behavior that has been somewhat difficult for you to change? Mine is being noticed. Perhaps you have an unhealthy relationship with a substance. Perhaps you eat when you know you're not hungry. Perhaps you buy things that you don't need. Perhaps you have sudden rage, fear, or sadness. Think about any situation where your level of urge to do what I did and run or fight, whatever that might be, our fight, flight, or freeze kicks in very quickly. And I want you to think about that for a minute. What is the thoughts and emotions that go along with that? What is your belief about yourself in that situation? Again, mine is, if I'm noticed, I'm in danger. That can be true, can it? So I can't totally say it's not true. But what's the chances of you guys here causing me danger? We could disagree on what I say. Yeah, I don't expect you to agree with everything I say or to like what I have to say. That's okay. But my brain goes to something far worse. Oh, it's going to ruin my reputation forever. If someone criticizes something I say. No, it's not. It's not. I tell my clients all the time, what I say is not for everyone. Eat the chicken for you and spit out the bones, and it does not matter to me. I want you to take what is meat for you and leave the rest. But I want you to think about some of those things in your life, some of those events, and think about what is your core belief? Where did that core belief come from? How far back does it go? And how has it affected your life in so many ways? The next slide. Oftentimes, people say it's too late for them. They've already messed up, or making something good out of their life just doesn't seem possible. Do you ever feel powerless to make a change? Perhaps you think it's too late. Did you know that cars that are restored have far more value than the original? Those that have been beaten up a little bit, there's a different level of honor and respect for them, isn't there? Did you know there's certain plants that can arise only out of the ashes after a fire? Some of them require the extreme conditions of the fire in order to flourish to their greatest potential. They become the biggest, tallest, and strongest trees, and they're some of the most gorgeous flowers. So although it would be nice to never experience trials in life, it would certainly be nice to never have a forest fire burning. Rising triumphantly is absolutely possible. You can come forth from the ashes to be strong and a beautiful, restored you. You can learn to live in the freedom to be unapologetically your best self. Next slide. I think you skipped a few. I'll keep going. So the next slide should have been about the core self. Internal family systems talks about the core self. Those are things that are present in our core before the life's trials start to get in the way, okay? So those 8 C's of the core are confidence, curiosity, connection, courage, creativity, compassion, calm, and clarity. Think about those for a minute. When did you get lost? Internal family systems says that we have a self, there's a part of ourself that shows up as the protector. So when we face life's trials, that protector shows up. I think I told you mine was perfectionism, right? Because if I can be perfect enough, I won't experience shame again. Confidence. What life event or events zapped your self-confidence? When did you start thinking that who you are is not enough? Curiosity. When did you stop asking questions and wanting to know more about more? When did you experience shame for not knowing something? Connection. When did you become afraid of being vulnerable and connected to others? When did you experience shame or pain from betrayal or rejection? Courage. When did your fears become stronger than your courage? Courage does not happen in the absence of fear. In fact, courage can only happen when facing a fear. When did you decide the risk wasn't worth it? Creativity. When did you throw away your creative self and just start going with the status quo? When did you trade in creative for responsible? Compassion. When did you become so hurt that you lost compassion for yourself and for others? When did you start to judge you and others? Calm. When was the last time you experienced true serenity, true peace? When did you learn to become fearful of peace? Clarity. When did you become confused about who you are, your strengths, your plan, your purpose, and your passion? We should be on slide 11 if you want to get there. So I learned about the restoration process, about furniture and vehicles. What I realized is my thoughts have become very similar regarding the restoration of people. Daddy spent hours learning about the original design and searching for that part that matches the original as closely as possible. I spend hours helping people find the core of who they are, not someone else, but who they are, who they were originally designed to be. Restoration as close to the original design as possible. Sometimes Daddy did soup up vehicles because he loved to race them every now and then. But that was when he was just doing things that were fun and exciting. But those times when he wanted to restore a vehicle, he always went back to the maker, the creator, and the plan and the purpose that the creator had for that part on that particular vehicle. So, some people ask me, how do I listen to people's problems every day? Like my daddy. He saw past those beaten up vehicles when they showed up. He saw their future. And I immediately see someone's future. I get so excited witnessing journeys to hope and healing so that people can live in the freedom of being unapologetically their best self. Who are you when you're living out the Creator's plan and purpose for you? And I give you just a few Bible verses here. Psalms 139, 13 through 14 says, God created your inmost being. He knit you together in your mother's womb. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. God's attention to every detail of your being, your spirit, your personality, your demeanor, your gifts, your talents. They all were created to reflect the wonder of God as His creation. Do you ever identify yourself as having an addictive personality? No one is ever created with an addictive personality. Your behaviors reveal that you have unresolved shame and pain. Do you identify yourself as being too sensitive or needy? You were not created too sensitive or needy. It just reveals you have unresolved hurt, possibly abandonment or a lack of belonging. 2 Timothy 1:7 says that we were not given a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. When you feel like you're going crazy, just remember, confidence, clarity, and self-control are characteristics that we were born with. Life's trials have clouded that for you. Joshua 1:9, God commands us to be strong and courageous, to not be afraid or discouraged. He wants you to have the confidence and courage as you journey through life. And Exodus 35:35 says, God filled them with skill to do all kinds of work as craftsmen, designers, and embroiderers. God gives the gift of creativity. Your creativity has divine purpose. Don't let the world's opinion rob you of a plan and purpose for your life. Artists, craftsmen, designers, they're told they can't make a living doing what they are gifted to do, so they take another route and end up feeling empty and without purpose. Psalm 23, 1-3. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all I need. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. That's the place of peace. He restores my soul. He leads me on the path of righteousness for his name's sake. God knows what you need to restore your soul. What ways do you feel like you need to feed your soul? Find those things that feed your soul. Find you. Could be walking, could be riding a motorcycle, could be playing a game, could be laying under the stars. There's any number of things, but you've got to find you. You've got to tap into that once again. He created you unique with unique ways to restore your soul. And I could go on and on about his divine plan and purpose for your life. But it just goes back to the Creator. He created you. So don't let the people in this world tell you who you should or should not be. I'm a 1969 Cindy, and there's none other just like me. Lots of things come good after 1969. So what's your unique make and model? And who does the Creator say that you are? We should be on slide 12. Who are you before you took on the identities based on life events or the opinions of others? And I'm using the word are because you're still there. You're just hidden. Who are you when you use your giftedness, your strengths, your unique characteristics, and your passion? Who are you before you learn that emotions are often used as tools or even weapons? Who are you when you feel your feelings and allow them to be messengers, road signs, so to speak, on this journey called life? Who are you before you experience trials in life? Who are you when you arise triumphant? Who are you when your light is shining brightest in this dark old world? What would life be like if your core self were restored? Are you interested in restoring you? Are you ready to take the journey of turning life's trials into triumphs? Imagine living from a place of confidence, curiosity, connection, courage, creativity, compassion, calm, and clarity. You would be living your unapologetically best self. Thank you.